My name is Ruben Halper, and I apologize, my Russian is about 3 words, so I'm going to do this session in English. I am from the London office, and I work as part of a small team called Tango Zebra, or you may hear us refer to as Google Creative Services. And essentially what we are is an agency for agencies. We function like an internal creative agency. We used to be an external agency that got acquired. And we're comprised of program managers such as myself, technical producers such as my colleague Charlotte, as well as a full design studio, brand planner, strategists, a couple of engineers. And essentially what we do is function in 3 main areas. Consultancy, which are either sessions like this or sort of specific conversations around campaigns or clients you may have, all the way down to creative support, where we'll actually take a brief into our studio, come up with some ideas, and really try to show you guys how to maximize the creative potential of YouTube and other products and platforms in the Google ecosystem. Really what we're trying to do is provide this consultancy almost like a free resource that you can tap into all the way from concept down to execution. So we have technical producers, engineers that can really help out if you have questions about APIs or developing on any of these platforms. That said, it's important to note what we don't do. So we're not a full-service agency. We're not a production house. We're not here to be in competition with any other creative agency. We're really just here, like I said, to be this resource that you can tap into at any time and use to get a fresh sort of set of eyes or a fresh perspective on what's possible using these different products and platforms. So what I thought I'd do today is talk a little bit about how we see things, what are some of the trends that we're seeing in terms of what's happening on YouTube specifically, and then show you guys a little bit about sort of ad formats and some interesting things that we're seeing in terms of what the creative possibilities are around YouTube in particular. So to kind of set the stage, really this is the past, right? It's been dominated in the past 60 years just as a form of storytelling. Television has been the dominant mode. And for the most part, that really started and stopped with a 30-second spot, right? That was really the primary thing that you could use to connect with an audience. But fast forward 60 years, and now all these different platforms, all these different things are competing for our attention, right? So TV is obviously still the dominant mode of storytelling. It's still obviously huge, and it's unparalleled in terms of reach and in terms of connecting with various audiences depending on the demographic. But increasingly, it's very fragmented, right? It's all these different things that are competing for your attention, and users are consuming content regardless of what's the best screen, it's just what's the most convenient screen. So whether that be smartphones, whether it be tablet, whether it be gaming consoles, etc. And really, it's our belief that in a few years, and even now, it's evolving so quickly that there won't be any such thing as online video. There will just be video. So it doesn't matter whether I'm sitting at home on my couch or whether I'm on the train, I'm going to consume content on whatever I have as a device that's most convenient, right? We already did studies and we see that almost half of people are accessing the internet at the same time they're watching television. If you look at things like smartphone penetration, if you look at tablet uptake, people are increasingly agnostic about what device they actually consume content on. And you can see this just in the consumption of video throughout the day. So this is, I apologize, this is actually for the US. We don't have this similar sort of stats for Russia at the moment. But what this is the consumption of online video throughout the course of the day. And if you look here, basically it goes up, it goes up, it goes up, and then right around closing time at work, it drops off, right? I get home, I'm tired, I sit on my ass on the couch, I watch television, I relax, and I just sort of tune out. Then after prime time, it starts picking up again. So that was 2009, less than 2 years ago. Fast forward 24 months, and that gap completely gets eliminated, right? Now, online video consumption is just growing throughout the day, basically until I go to bed. And again, the reason for this are things like broadband penetration, the increase in smartphones, the uptake of tablets. So people are just, they're consuming content on all these devices all throughout the day. So it's really interesting to see how rapidly these changes are occurring and how quickly they're actually accelerating. So the actual pace of change is going faster and faster. If we look at this sort of curve in a year, I'm sure that gap will continue to increase as all these different devices become more and more accessible to people at lower price points. Now, obviously, we're biased, right? We're Google. We have some stake in this. And so it's really interesting to see how media owners in particular and how media companies are thinking about this. And we had the opportunity to go to Cannes this year, a bunch of myself and the team. And we saw this guy by the name of Jeff Bewkes. Does anybody know who he is? He's the chairman and CEO of Time Warner. And they're both one of the largest media owners in the world, but they also are one of the biggest internet providers in the world. So they bought AOL, they own a ton of movie studios, TV companies, things like that. And really, they should feel under threat by this whole thing, right? This should be a huge threat to their business. They're in danger of losing their source of all these different ad revenues, things like that. And this was his take on how things are.
A false issue or debate as TV versus the internet. It's not TV versus the internet. It's programming on the internet. And the creativity is obviously vital. The economics are fantastic of both television. Every TV company you know, increased profits, increased program investment, increased quality. And internet companies provide tremendously more power for you, the audience, to connect to that healthy business. So we are at the beginning stage of an explosion of essentially community creators connecting to their audience.
I mean,
Right, so that's his take on things. And I don't know if you heard the end of it, but he was saying we're at the beginning of this explosion of community and creators connecting. And we really see that on YouTube, right? I don't know, how many of you guys were here last time I was in Russia? June? Nobody? I could have just used the old presentation. Damn. So some of you may recall, some of you may have already seen this number, but currently we're serving up 3 billion views a day, right? 3 billion videos globally are being watched on YouTube or using the YouTube player. And in terms of content, 48 hours a minute are being uploaded to the platform. So in the time that I've been talking, about 2 weeks of content has already gone up on the platform. So it's this thing that's not niche media anymore. It's something that's really part of the mainstream, but that presents a really big challenge. And the challenge is, how do you turn a passive viewer into an engaged user, right? How do I go from this mode of storytelling on television, where I just had this interruption basis, I just had this lean back mode, and turn it into actually something where the audience is doing something, whether they're uploading their own content or just actually getting involved, leaning forward, and actually not just sitting there and just watching the content passively. So we do a lot of sort of research and kind of understanding of user behavior and trying to figure out what people are doing on our platform. And really where all of this starts is understanding why people come to YouTube. And it's really 3 simple behaviors. They cover 99.9% of all activity on the platform. First, education, right? There's hundreds and thousands and millions of searches every single day of people typing in how to something. So whether it be makeup tips, whether it be stuff about fixing your house, fixing your car, tips around your phone, things like that. It's an absolutely huge category, and it's across all different verticals. Second behavior, education, right? Everybody here has obviously watched a video that was funny, or whether it be UGC, whether it be advertiser content, doesn't matter. That's obviously this huge space on YouTube. But the third, and I think is the most important, is expression. And expression can really run the whole spectrum of behavior. It could be something as simple as commenting on a video. It could be something as simple as rating a video. It could be uploading your own content. It could be taking part in a contest. Or, I think most importantly, sharing, right? If you share a video, if you share a link, you're saying something about yourself. You're associating yourself with that piece of content. You're saying this says something about me, or this is meaningful to me in some way, shape, or form. And I'll talk about that a little bit more when we talk about YouTube as a social media platform. But from an advertiser perspective, there are ways to tap into all 3 of these behaviors, right? Obviously, you can try to accomplish one or the other, but some people are getting pretty ambitious and trying to do all 3 of them in one campaign. So I'd like to show you an example. This is from a brand called Athenos, and what they are, they make hummus and other Greek foods. They're based out of the US, and back in April, they ran their first ever TV campaign. So they'd never run TV before, relatively small, sort of niche brand. And they had a great series of spots, but they wanted to really take it to the digital platforms as well. So what they did was created this thing called YouTube. And YouTube 101 is take all of your TV collateral, take behind the scenes content, make sure it's uploaded to the platform, make sure it's there in a branded environment so that you can expose people who come looking for commercials to any sort of product messaging, things like that. So let's start by looking at the spots.
Hey, Michelle, what you doing?
I'm serving delicious Athenos hummus to my friends.
That's great. Let's see what Yaya thinks.
You dress like a prostitute.
Did she just call me a prostitute?
No, Yaya would never do.
Prostitute.
Never mind that, Michelle. At least Yaya approves of you serving Athenos hummus. Because only Athenos is made the Greek way, with 100% olive oil. Athenos, maybe the only thing approved by Yaya. Hey, Doug and Kathy, what you got there?
Hey, I'm making a snack of Athenos hummus. We just love how rich and tasty.
Of course you do. I wonder what Yaya thinks.
Why you no have job?
Well, my wife works, and I stay at home with the kids.
You are wife.
Don't worry, Doug. At least Yaya approves of you serving Athenos hummus. Because only Athenos is made the Greek way, with 100% olive oil. Athenos, maybe the only thing approved by Yaya.
So I don't know, do they have that stereotype over here? The sort of the old grandma who's like 2 generations behind and doesn't get it? Yes? No? A little bit? Okay. So those are obviously great spots, but you can see this is what's called a custom channel. And this whole area below the YouTube header is you have complete creative flexibility there, right? You can do whatever you want, and pretty much you can completely replicate a microsite, a campaign site, a website. And so they took their spots, they put them in this nice branded environment, but then again, they took it a step further. That was the education side, but then on the educational side of things, or excuse me, that was the entertainment side. On the educational side of things, they included this recipe book that had not only hummus, but other Athenos products. And as a nice way to tie this activity together with Facebook, in order to see the recipe, it would actually take you off to their Facebook page, right? So it's making a nice sort of seamless integration between their activity on YouTube and their activity on Facebook. And in terms of the expression side of things, they created something called Let Yaya Say It. And this was essentially a chance for the users to create their own content. So they had these little snippets of video, and you could choose one and then subtitle it however you wanted, right? Make your own message and let Yaya spread your message out there. So I was actually playing with this. I was coming back from a work trip in Stockholm, literally just got into the airport, and I got a text message from British Airways telling me my flight was canceled. Had weekend plans, was supposed to go away, completely screwed me, right? Plans shattered. And so I decided to let Yaya say it and tell British Airways what I thought. I apologize for the language.
Έλα βρε παιδάκι μου, τι θα γίνει με σένα? Δεν μπορώ πια, δεν αντέχω, με έχεις τρελάνει βρε παιδάκι μου. Εγώ θέλω να σε δω να μεγαλώνεις, να γίνεις μεγάλος.
So we create these, right? And now I'm posting it to Facebook. I tweeted it at British Airways. They didn't respond, which wasn't so surprising. But it's just this great ability to create something that users now can personalize the experience. And that's a lot of what we're seeing, and we'll get into that in terms of trends in a minute. But if you look at the campaign statistics, they had more than 2.5 million views of the spots. More than 1,500 of those Let Yaya Say It videos were created. And what's really interesting is more than 30% of the views actually came after the TV flight, right? So even once they dropped their traditional spend, this thing still has life, and it still exists today. And people are still going back to it and creating these personalized videos and letting Yaya say it, right? So it's a great way to sort of extend out the life cycle of a traditional campaign just by doing a little something that gives the users an incentive to participate. And that's one of the biggest trends we actually see. So this idea of extending and amplifying your campaign. It's can be difficult. I'm not sure what the agency landscape is like here. A lot of the markets that I cover, digital is still down the hallway around the corner and isn't really, fully integrated agencies haven't quite reached their peak yet. Hopefully that's changing. But in terms of really having the maximum effect across the digital landscape, I think it takes this upfront planning where digital is involved from the get-go, right? They're involved in the planning process. And really just thinking about how am I going to activate and how am I going to create something that has life in the digital space becomes incredibly important. We obviously saw this with things like VW The Force, right? The little mini Darth Vader ad that was launched on YouTube before it actually ran on television, right? So that took the format and turned it on its head, and it was obviously very successful. This next example is a great example of what happens when you actually think about how you're going to do this even before the TV spot is planned. And again, it goes back to this idea that it doesn't have to be complex to be successful. So you don't have to build this YouTube thing, which is fantastic, but obviously takes a lot of production. It's going to take some development and things like that. So this is a spot from Nissan in Brazil.
Você quer uma picape que tenha cavalos ou pôneis?
Pôneis malditos!
Pônei maldito, venha com a gente atolar. Odeio barro, odeio lama. Que nojinho, não vou sair do lugar.
Te quero!
Escolha uma picape forte de verdade. Nissan Frontier, 172 cavalos, a mais forte da categoria. A Nissan tem um jeito inovador de pesar a força. Pense num Nissan.
Ei, você! Não fecha o vídeo, não! Deixa eu falar uma coisinha!
É o seguinte, se você não passar esse vídeo agora para 10 pessoas, você vai sofrer a maldição do pônei. Você vai ficar o resto da vida com essa música na cabeça.
Pônei maldito, lá 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 lá. Pônei maldito, lá 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 lá.
So you can see there, that's just a 30-second spot, right? And it was an entertaining 30-second spot. But they thought about, how is this going to have life on YouTube afterwards? And if you think about what was the incremental production cost of just adding on those computer graphics at the end, it was nothing, right? They already had the investment plan for the actual TV campaign. So just doing that little, the curse of the pony on a black screen, it's really very, very small in terms of incremental. But the effects were huge, right? In 1 month, it had more than 12 million views. And even more interesting, enough people were scared of the curse of the pony that 800,000 shares, right? So more than 5% of the actual audience was sharing this around. And going back to that idea of expression, 25,000 video comments. And again, it really shows the impact of thinking digital in the upfront process. So that's really, I'd say right now, the biggest trend that we're seeing is how do we make sure these things are married tightly and that it's not just paying lip service to the idea of a 360-degree campaign, but actually doing it and doing it well. Next trend, which has always existed, but we're seeing new twists on, is the idea of leveraging user-generated content. And YouTube has its origins in user-generated content, but that always has, it's almost a dirty word in advertising, right? This idea of UGC, what do you think of? You think of low quality, you think of a crappy camera phone, you think of something like that. And that's not true anymore, right? The tools to actually create high quality video and the number of excellent creators out there is just growing and growing. Because you can now get really a high quality camera for a few $100. And if you look at what brands like Doritos are doing, they're actually buying out media time for huge events like the Super Bowl and blocking that out for UGC spots. So for the past 5 years, they've actually crowdsourced at least one of the spots that they buy for the Super Bowl, right? So you're talking a $3.5 million media investment that they're going to put in the hands of UGC. So last year, this was the winner, and you can see, this could be a professional production company.
Oh, babe, check this out. Hey, come on. You want a little chippy? You want a Dorito? Are you hungry? I'm gonna get a Dorito.
Babe, don't hurt my dog.
Come on, get a tip. Come on, get a tip. Get a tip. Come on. Here he goes. Here he goes.
So they're running that again this year. From last year, well, from 2 years ago to the last year, they just keep seeing sort of increases both in participation, and then it has this sort of knock-on effect in terms of both increases in submissions, but then all their other social media activity then have corresponding increases. So they have an open call, then that gets narrowed down, it gets voted on by the audience, and then obviously they have a judge of panelists and things like that. they're actually doing a really interesting take on this. This year they bought 2 spots during the Super Bowl. One will be produced by, do you guys know the Lonely Island? Yeah? You guys, it's not really work safe, or there's a camera on, so I can't show you some of the spots and things like that they produce. But so Doritos has gotten them to produce one of the spots, and the second spot will be produced by crowdsourced, right? It'll be UGC. And they're going to do an ad meter and figure out which one gets the highest rating. And if the UGC spot gets the highest rating, they'll have a chance to work with the Lonely Island, produce a video, and get $1 million. And if the Lonely Island one wins, then Lonely Island or Doritos will donate $1 million to charity. So sort of everyone wins. But it's really interesting putting the idea of the pros up against the amateurs and to see who comes out on top. So there's a few different interesting ways that people are tapping into this. One of my favorites is actually from a telco in the US. I'll let them explain it first. So I don't know if you caught that, but basically Blink-182, they're releasing a new music video, and rather than penalize the people who are ripping them off and spoofing their videos, they're rewarding them, right? They found all the different covers, things like that on YouTube, and they use that as the actual source of the music video for their new single. And then these little icons linked out to the actual videos. So rather than penalizing, copyright violators, they're really rewarding that top of the pyramid, right? And that's always what we're trying to get, is all those people who are rabid participants, rabid fans. Why penalize them? Why not actually give them even more sort of reason to spread out your content, spread out your message, etc. So you may not like the band, but cool idea. And actually, it's not just video that's doing this. So there's a band in the UK called The Vaccines, and what they did. Anybody here use Instagram? Of course. Okay, I'd be shocked. So if you uploaded photos from any of the summer music festivals with the hashtag vaccines, they took all of those and turned it into essentially a slideshow music video. So the actual user photos from those festivals became the real linchpin for the music video that they put together, and it was beautiful. So yeah, I'll also be sending around a PDF that has more examples in each of these categories and a couple other trends. In the interest of time, I don't want to, or I don't have time to go through everything. But also, another trend we're seeing is social experiments. It's really trying to bridge the offline and the online as much as possible. It's nothing new, right? I mean, we've been seeing this since candid camera started in the 1970s. But the way that brands are tapping into this is really interesting. Carlsberg, as you may or may not know, changed their strapline from probably the best lager in the world to that calls for a Carlsberg. And this is after 30 years of having this same tagline. And the reason is that the Asian markets are a huge growth market for them. But saying probably in your tagline basically means you have no confidence. You have no, you're saying that I'm not actually the best lager in the world, right? Probably is like, eh. So they changed it to that calls for a Carlsberg, but how do you actually express the principles behind that, right? What does that actually mean in practice? And their agency in Belgium actually did a great little piece that I think really brought home what the tagline means. And so I just love that. It's if you're courageous, that calls for a Carlsberg. If you don't judge a book by its cover, that calls for a Carlsberg. And just a really nice way of expressing that, again, you couldn't really do for a 30-second spot, nor would it even have a home on television, right? And that's really, I think, where a lot of the opportunities lie, is sort of longer form spots, things like that, where you can really bridge the gap between traditional and digital. And we're seeing a lot of examples of that. I'll again, send some more. And then last but not least, we're seeing a lot of creating this sort of personalized or bespoke user experience. So IKEA did a great
Ignore
YouTube
not the
brand channel
forgotten
here.
bedrooms, for even they have tales to tell. Sad stories of never-repaired lamps and it'll-do-for-now mattresses. But what if you had the chance to begin again? What would you change to make certain that you go happy to bed?
So what it's going to do is basically ask me to connect through Facebook. And it really doesn't matter what platform you're connecting through, but that's obviously the dominant one that they're using to create something that's personal. And then once it's connected in, it's also going to ask me about what my living situation is like, right? So it's me, my wife, and how long are we actually living together? So I obviously had a little bit of a hard time remembering when I was doing this, but it actually will then tailor the experience, right? So if it's something where you choose you just moved in or you haven't moved in, the narrative that they then shape for you is different than if you choose, 5 years, and they've created a script that's different depending on your actual selections. And then this is actually a really nice touch, more from the executional side. This obviously takes a while to load, right? It takes a while to build. And rather than just having this status bar, what they're doing is pulling from my Facebook wall, from my status updates, and using that while they build this 3D bedroom. So it takes a little bit too long in my opinion, but it's going to decrease the bounce rate because I'm kind of looking, what's this thing saying? What are they actually pulling? So it's just way better than seeing this sort of status bar kind of slog along very slowly. So I thought that was just a really nice little clever touch.
Welcome, Ruben.
And it even gets my name right.
This is the bedroom that might be. Everything that is you and you are is here. When
So
two
you can
lives
see it's pulling in my
collide,
pictures,
it's a place
obviously.
to keep all that you both share and to set you not. It's a playground of do not. It's a playground of intertwined toes and
And I can
teasing
change
tickles.
colors of the different products
It's a place
they're
for
showcasing.
fun and frolicking and secret smiles. Somewhere to be yourself and not take life too seriously. To fight for duvet rights and proclaim who hogs the bed. But most of all, it's a place to declare, this is my bedroom. This is where I will go happy to bed.
So you can see it creates something that is like this, somewhat of an emotional experience, but then they really tie it together in terms of providing a direct path to purchase. So each of these hotspots links directly off to the IKEA product page. You're one click away from purchase, or I can actually click and then print off my shopping list. So it goes from trying to be emotional to then almost being like a direct response tool and really narrowing that path to purchase for the user. So again, it's not something that would have been as effective if it wasn't personalized for me, right? Then it just would have been a showcase of the IKEA products that would have essentially been a digital catalog. But by creating, the bespoke experience by connecting through Facebook, it made me much more likely to dwell on it and to go fully through the experience. And really, it's all about pushing users onto this, what we call the ad spectrum of pain, pushing them away from ads, which are usually down here somewhere between shoot me and I'm vaguely willing to watch, to actually creating content, right? Creating content and not just ads. And that's really where we see users either willing to share or things that are actually fully viral. And I think that's really the main takeaway, is that people don't really engage with just ads, they engage with content. So if you create something that's spreadable, that's shareable, that people can associate themselves with, that's really where the sort of amplification effect happens. And we can talk about that more when we talk about YouTube as a social platform.